I hope you're doing really well. It's the 13th of August 2025. I'm Gary Waterman, a former UK police constable, and at the moment I'm going to show you some updated evidence in relation to the international government fraud whereby our government centre organisations have been involved in the forgery of the Companies House registration system and incorporation documents, which has enabled them to defraud trillions of pounds from the masses, but also deliberately and knowingly facilitates international conflicts, terrorism and the most unimaginable awful crimes against children, even far worse than their sexual abuse, according to all of the evidence. But before we do that, I'm going to show you some correspondence between one of my contacts and I earlier today, and I've got permission to share this because this is very important actually, and it proves the infiltration within the devices and the apps that we're all being led to believe are encrypted. This is a WhatsApp voice note sent to me. And listen very carefully and you'll hear a second voice. And I don't believe this is from the contact side of things because they actually alerted me to this second voice. You can see underneath here. So let's have a listen to this.
Now, they're actually coming together. I mean, this is massive. And we've got to then print that, send it to all of it in each of our MPs in all of our areas. Ideally to every MP in the country, 650. But we as a people, we as Indigenous people to the UK and professionals who've worked within the organisation of policing, so on and so forth, that say, we know what's going on. We know what you're doing and we're not going to tolerate it. And then we send it to the Home Office, send it to the Attorney General, Secretary of State, and to the Prime Minister. I mean, for what that's worth, we already know, but because the WEF and the UN is controlling our nation. But that's what we've got to do. And of course, I think they'll have a plan B for that, and they'll nuke us all. Wow. And as for that Hadron Collider, I don't...
Hopefully you heard that. We'll just play that one more time for you.
To do. And of course, I think they'll have a plan B for that, and they'll nuke us all. Wow. And as for that Hadron Collider, I don't know.
Now, this suggests the intelligence agencies, I would think, are listening in on everything I'm doing, but this is encrypted, remember. This shouldn't even happen, and I have got evidence that they have deleted information from WhatsApp contact, which is supposedly encrypted. Now, that reaction is interesting because it's when the contact refers to nuclear war, okay, as a strategy by those running this criminal system as they become cornered, and the reaction is, wow. Now, that suggests they either are surprised that this person is knowing that information or that concern, or they don't know and they're just gobsmacked that actually, yes, wow, we haven't thought about this and this really could be the plan, and that's how the reaction was. Now, I don't know if nuclear weapons are real. Some people have suggested they're not. It does appear that the supposed threat over the last few decades of nuclear war is all deception, with the international leaders all actually working collaboratively on this fraud, and the nuclear element of things does tie into the collider technology. So it's possible they're using the cover of the nuclear weapons to hide the real agenda surrounding the collider technology, which we're going to talk about that a bit later. But anyway, I found that particularly interesting. Let's look at the document. So in the last video, we looked at the international currency producer De La Rue and how that links into Ghislaine Maxwell very quickly, and them appearing to continue to be funneling money through this criminal system. And we looked at an address of 45 to 47 Elgin Crescent, Freehold Company Limited. Well, that actually features later in the research linking into earthquakes, okay, and apparent connections to the collider technology. So we're going to look at that later. But I've added a bit more information that I'd forgot, and that is that leads into Terramar UK, which I mentioned in the last video. And Terramar UK links almost immediately via an aerospace company to my brother-in-law, whose name is Richard Timms, his family's company. And I only found that out after he put a message on a family group throwing me under the bus, okay, which was messages where my niece and nephew were, who I love very much, and they threw me under the bus, which meant which then prompted me to research my brother-in-law and found connections very quickly to Ghislaine Maxwell via this particular company. But it also connects to immediately to an informal parliamentary UK island group. Okay, so in other words, Guernsey, Jersey, etc. Now, they're obviously tax havens, which enables the ability to launder money from the masses through the taxation system into accounts and addresses on those islands. But also, there's very clear evidence of the apparent murder of children linking to those islands, which we're going to talk about later. But of course, you also have Jeffrey Epstein has an island in the British Virgin Islands, I believe, and Richard Branson has islands, and we're actually going to touch on the Virgin Foundation very, very soon. And that informal parliamentary island group was set up by Bob Seeley, who was the MP for the Isle of Wight, where all in the area where this all started, where Deborah Fleming was an NHS chief executive for Hampshire, Isle of Wight and Dorset, and he's now no longer an MP since being exposed. He also had connections to the former Soviet Union, and he was also involved in the Hawaii investigation, always say that wrong, but the Chinese mobile phone company, which ties into the evidence that I've got in relation to the threat of directed energy, which also links into the collider technology. But also, this Terramar, you will see later, links into the evidence that I've got in relation to the Christchurch earthquake and the evidence of possibly involving the colliders, which is what I mentioned a moment ago. But it also links into the evidence of David Icke, okay, which we'll also go into. So we're now going to talk about the military and particularly Richard Knighton. And I've put in the document that, in my opinion, the following evidence, combined with other evidence shown in this document, proves beyond all reasonable doubt that the military and the intelligence agencies are part of a centralised criminal system that knowingly facilitates the exploitation, victimisation and suffering of the masses, or to the masses. It also suggests that as the exposure continues, they are trying to remove a safeguarded chain of decision-making, okay, by centralising everything to such a point, such as here, where one person can make huge decisions, and where there is accountability and liability, or where there should be, and where moral conscience is implemented into those decisions. I believe this is against creation, and by design appears to be leading to the end of all creation, or make certain people believe that is the case. The heads of the military complex appear to have been controlled as part of the criminal system, and in June 2025, as the exposure continued, Richard Knighton was announced to become the Chief of Defence Staff and therefore the head of the British Armed Forces, starting in September 2025, next month. This coincides with the publicised proposed test of the public emergency broadcast system. A recent article also claims that there is a collaboration with Knighton and Israeli forces where they are refusing to make any comment on this. And we're going to look at that article in a minute. As part of their plans surrounding my exposure, I was targeted with a staged emergency broadcast to my device several months ago as an apparent plan to try and convince me to support Donald Trump and the supposed background operations taking place to resolve the crimes against children. And the circumstance of that, where we were driving along when my wife and I were together, and my phone was not even being used, and suddenly it started speaking, and my wife pulled over, and we listened to this for about 15 minutes. My wife was not surprised at all, and I now know why, because she probably knew it was going to happen. And it went on for about 10-15 minutes talking about there will be a blackout for a period of days where there's no internet, and they're going to be publicising videos showing public executions, and that everyone needed to prepare with getting supplies in to prepare for that. Now, I checked, and nobody else I knew had that come up on their phone. So that suggests that was deliberately targeted at me, and I suspect that was to get me to believe something was being done. Well, I don't believe that is the case, because they need to now come straight forward and expose the criminal system. They're not doing that. And remember, I've been doing this for 3 years now, and all they've been trying to do is shut me down, stop my evidence, undermine me, make me feel I was going to be murdered or unalived. So I don't, until they actually publicise on mainstream media that they've had this company's house fraud in place, I won't believe a word of it. Okay, so that's what happened. And of course, these emergency broadcast systems will tie in with what I am saying in relation to the falsified biblical prophecies of earthquakes, that I think they're actually going to try, according to all of the evidence, try and create, and probably have been creating for a while. Further down, I've just put the links to Richard Knighton and also the article that we were talking about, which we'll have a quick look here because this becomes relevant with what I'm going to show you. And it says the Royal Air Force chief avoids Gaza questions as Israeli counterpart visits UK. So Richard Knighton refused to talk to Declassified about his support for Israel's Air Force as their commander landed in England. This was on the 21st of July 2025. You can see on the left hand side there. Britain's top Air Force officer has angrily avoided questions about Gaza while his colleagues pushed a journalist out of the way. Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton hurried to a taxi outside the Savoy Place in central London Thursday whilst being grilled by Declassified about his aerial surveillance of the conflict. Knighton had just finished hosting a global gathering of Air Force commanders sponsored by arms with gold tickets. Now, the Savoy is linked into the international fraud, and remember, everything's centralised, so the hotels specifically appear to link to the Goldsmith family, which are massively implicated in this, and we're going to see some connections to that shortly, possibly on the next video. Now, let's look at the Companies House records. Companies House shows that Knighton is connected to 3 companies. This includes the UK Armed Forces Winter Sports Association that was incorporated in 2009. This is not only the same year, but it's very close within a few days of the incorporation of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, which links all areas of the fraud. And its name was changed in 2016, the same year as the apparent ritual as CERN. Wilson Solicitors LLP is shown on the incorporation document. So we're just going to have a quick look at this just to confirm it. So here's the 3 companies that he's connected to, and here's the UK Armed Forces Winter Sports Association, incorporated 29th of September 2009. I think it was the 24th of September that the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales was incorporated. And you can see the previous name here, and then the change in November 2016. If we look on the filing history, on the incorporation document, you will see it's quite a way down, Wilson Solicitors LLP. And I'm showing you this just so you can see the connection as we go into that solicitors in a moment. It's quite a long way down. Here we go. So you can see the company name at the top, and then further down you've got, there you go, Wilson Solicitors LLP. So we're going to take a look at that now. Here's Wilson Solicitors LLP that was on the incorporation document. You can see it was incorporated in July 2009. And on the incorporation document, actually, it appears to be forged. I'm going to show you that quickly. Here you go. So this is a standard template form that's used with the incorporation documents. And you can see here the outlines of the boxes and the line through the middle, where you can see all of the rest of the document is legible. But something has happened to this section of the document you can see here. And this is happening a lot as the fraud is being exposed, I suspect, and suggests that there was another name in this box for the company, and they have, I suspect, falsified that document afterwards. Which is a serious crime, by the way. Going into the people record, we're going to look at this. Now, there's fraud all the way through this, but I'm just showing you things that you will find the most interesting and very relevant for what we're seeing happening at the moment. There should be a Michael George Hanley, and he connects to 2 companies, and one of them is the Immigration Law Practitioners Association Limited. And obviously immigration is a really hot topic at the moment, and it is all tied into what is going on. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you this. And this was incorporated, you can see on the right hand side here, on the 21st of February 1989. Well, that is a key year, everybody, because that is when the World Wide Web was created for CERN. Okay, everything goes back into CERN and the Collider technology, and that was created by Tim Berners-Lee and he lived in Wimborne, where the Flemings lived, are the ones that initiated my removal from Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. And the companies that he previously worked at in Bournemouth and Ferndown link almost immediately back into Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. And the address here, the registered address of Tabernacle Street, is an address that they use throughout the fraud, and they use certain variations of it. And I believe from memory, the Tabernacle address links into the research of Jeffrey Epstein and Max Clifford, I believe. And then within the people record of this company, we have a Margaret Shutter somewhere. Susan Margaret Shutter. And she connects to 4 companies, including the project for the registration of children as British citizens. And the reason I'm showing this is because, you know, a lot of people are saying, Gary, you need to focus on just the birth certificate fraud. Well, no, because that means everything else stays in place. Okay, that means this laundering system stays in place, which is creating all of the world's problems and leading to what appears to be biblically falsified biblical prophecies, which could end everything. And we're going to look at all of the evidence of that. So a lot of people I know saying, well, that's a huge thing to say. Well, wait until you see the evidence. So this is showing the forgery being connected to the registration of children on the birth certificate side of things. And you can see this company on the right here was incorporated in 2015. And look when it dissolved in August 2022. Well, that's a month almost to the day after I approached Anthony Roberts in Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, and that triggered this whole investigation. On the incorporation document, in the filing history, you'll see a company called Company Registrations Online. Just to confirm that, here's the incorporation document, and towards the bottom, here we go, Company Registrations Online. And that's important because the managing agent for Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, which we'll look at quickly now, and here's Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, where I was a director, and you can see at the bottom you'll see me. Okay, I didn't resign, I was removed, okay, for refusing to file forged bank documents. And then on here you've got this, so this is the acting chairman who resigned at the time. You can see he resigned on the right hand side there, 13th of July, but it was actually the 8th of July when I approached him to look at the bank documents. And then you've also got, unless they've removed it, Stephen Owens. There you go, Stephen Trevor Owens. And he resigned, you can see on the right hand side there, 30th of September 2022, as I'm making inquiries within Exbourne Manor, and he refused to answer any questions, okay, and gave resignation on the spot as the management company for Exbourne Manor. And you can see that's just over less than a month after the Queen supposedly died. I suspect she didn't. I suspect that was all staged as part of all of this. And you can see when you go into the record for him, they've only got one appointment, but he's actually connected to others. And this is where the duplication of the record comes in by our governments. And here's the record for Owens and Porter Limited, who was the name of the company, Stephen Owens. And if we go into the filing history, just to show you, Company Registrations Online, will be on there. And you can see Owens and Porter, and there's Stephen Trevor Owens, okay, the same person that you've just seen connected to Exbourne Manor, where I was removed. And this address, 3 Durrant Road, is where the accountant had an address. And that accountant, according to the evidence, was filing for a very long time forged documents that appeared to be being facilitated and actually produced by a person within the Treasury Department of Lloyds Bank. And Dorset Police even provided 2 emails confirming inadvertently that they were allowing those forged bank documents to be created. Completely criminal. And here we have Company Registrations Online, just showing you that connection. And we're going to go back into the Immigration Law Practitioners Association Limited. And obviously this is, as I've said, this is a huge topic for everyone. So this is why I'm sort of focusing a little bit on this area. There should be a Nicholas John Blake somewhere here. There you go. Sorry, I just skipped to that because there's quite a few directors. So here's Nicholas John Blake, and he connects to the Death Penalty Project Limited. And this is very, very important. Okay, you can see here it was incorporated in 2005. And it's important because Keir Starmer is a former director that resigned from it at a key time. First of all, we'll go into the filing history. I'll just show you this first. So remember, we've come in from Rich Knight, who is being given a very important role in relation to the military, and they're therefore in charge of very serious weapons, potentially. And this is a criminal organisation that our Prime Minister is linked to. Okay, here's the Death Penalty Project, and you can see the London Law Agency on page 2. That is a criminal organisation linking to international child trafficking, crimes against humanity. Okay, and that is because when you go in through and research that company, they've actually got the register has been forged. Okay, and the document within the filing history has a different name, okay, of Ganvalon Motors. So it's been forged. And further down on the document, you'll see Bates, Wells and Braithwaite's. That connects to the Madeleine McCann Company, No Stone Unturned. It's actually called Madeleine's Fund, No Stone Unturned Limited. It also connects to the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales on their incorporation document. You can go and check that. And if you look at Bates, Wells and Braithwaite, they were also the clients for Sean Combs or P. Diddy for the investigation, okay, in relation to child trafficking, which they will have used as a cover-up to alter, conceal or destroy the evidence into the worldwide criminal corruption and child trafficking, which all evidence suggests they have been involved in. And then if we go back to the people record, just to confirm, Keir Starmer on here. BWB Secretarial Limited is the connection to the Madeleine McCann case. And it links various other important companies. And that Madeleine McCann company is also a criminal organisation. And of course, there'll be laundering money through that organisation in relation to the investigation and funneling it, it appears, into the Collider agenda. So here's Keir Starmer, and you can see he resigned at a key time in April 2020. That wasn't long after Gordon Bowden died, who was the person that was starting to expose the company's house fraud via the non-verification, okay, and the address of 788 to 790 Finchley Road. And the accountant, Carter and Coley, that I told you about a moment ago, who was the accountant for Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, on their incorporation document, you have 788 to 790 Finchley Road. Within the Immigration Law Practitioners Association Limited, I just want to show a couple of other connections. There's Oxford Companies. I'm just showing you an example. Oxford was very prominent for... the Maxwells were very prominent there. Okay, Robert and Ghislaine Maxwell, they lived there. In fact, Ghislaine Maxwell was a director for Oxford Football Club, and the football clubs are massively important in relation to the international money laundering. It's a huge part of it. If we go back to some other entries, this person, Vishal McCall, connects to the Society of Asian Lawyers Limited. And you can see here the care of address of Liberty Law Solicitors. Now, I suspect that's connected to the Liberty Group, okay, which was where the National Council for Civil Liberties were affiliated to the Paedophile Information Exchange, and that ties in to the evidence of the World Trade Center disaster. Christopher Randall of the same company connects to Refugee Action. And Nicolette Helen Rogers connects to 7 companies, including Bail for Immigration Detainees. There's a reason I'm showing you this, because it's very relevant to everything that's happening. So we're back into the UK Armed Forces Winter Sports. Remember, Wilson Solicitors LLP was on the incorporation document, which is where we led with that latest evidence. But now we're going to look at another director within this company and see why this is all so important. Because there's a person called Stokes Richard Stokes. There we go. And he connects to... Oh, is it that record? Go back. Okay, so they've got 2 records. You can see this is a good example. Okay, and companies house know full well what they're doing. So within this company, you've got 1 company linked to Richard Stokes, but there's another Richard Stokes here, you can see. And this one has 6 companies. So you can see the duplication. This is all deliberate by design to hide this fraud. And in here, you'll see UKSA Trading Limited. And this company was incorporated in June 2007, just over a month after Madeleine McCann went missing, which is all very relative, everybody. And you can see there's an address of the Isle of Wight for this company, which is where MP Bob Seeley lived, that created, sorry, not what lived, was the MP for, who created the UK Island Group linking to Ghislaine Maxwell. It's also where Deborah Fleming was the chief executive for the NHS. And it is, and this is all connected, it's where the first radio mast was positioned in 1898, linking into Marconi and also the Vatican, because Marconi was connected to the Vatican, which makes the connection to the threat of directed energy. And this company is a criminal organisation, UKSA Trading Limited, and that is because on the incorporation document you have the London Law Agency again. Remember the company that was on the Keir Starmer's death penalty project limited. Just to show you the incorporation document. There you go, you have the London Law Agency Limited, a criminal organisation, which means this is also a criminal organisation because the illegality continues through the document. And if we go into one of the people records, we have a Catherine Helen Dixon, who links to multiple 16 companies, but also links to legal companies, really important ones as well. The Arbitration Services Limited, Independent Dispute Resolution Services Limited. The whole legal system is set up around this fraud and the child trafficking, according to all of the evidence. Okay, the City Disputes Panel, Institute of Family Law Arbitrators Limited, King's Counsel Appointments Limited, and the King is massively implicated in this, everybody. Solicitors Pro Bono, the Law Society Services Limited. It goes on, Solicitors Indemnity Fund, Legal Indemnity Operations. And now this is where it gets really important, because you have the NSPCC Trading Company Limited. That's the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. This is already featured in my research and is connected to the international child trafficking. And this one was incorporated in 1966, which is the year of the foundation of the Church of Satan. You can see the previous company names here at the bottom. Last changed its name in 2011, February, not long before the Christchurch earthquake, which was on the 22nd of February 2011. And obviously that's the year later in that year, on the 29th of October, I believe, that Jimmy Savile supposedly died. We look on the filing history. We will see Jordan's and Sons Limited, I believe, at the bottom. There you go. So this is a criminal, fraudulent organisation. Jordan's and Sons was set up in 1965, which was the year before the foundation of the Church of Satan. So this is a criminal organisation. The same director also connects to Childline. And Childline was incorporated in 1991. An absolutely key time in all of this. And you're going to see how this ties in with David Icke, with the technology of the Collider technology in later evidence. And it's also the year before Companies House became electronic, or started to become electronic, which is how they expedited the fraud through the forgery of the electronic register to funnel the money through into the Collider technology, according to all of the evidence. And on its incorporation document, Bearing in mind, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, is one of the clients of this company, according to the research. And the Sean Combs or P. Diddy investigation started in 2023, as I was obviously exposing all of this. And you'll see Bates, Wells and Braithwaite on the incorporation document. Here's Childline, Bates, Wells and Braithwaite. That's the same company on the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It links to Keir Starmer's company. It links to the Madeleine McCann company. But it also links to the P. Diddy scandal. And you can see at the bottom here, this company, OYES, the Solicitors Law Stationery Society. That company connects to the research of the advisor for the last few prime ministers, Douglas Smith, also Jeffrey Epstein and Max Clifford. Back to the UK SA Trading Limited, a criminal organisation. And obviously what I'm trying to highlight here is how close the immigration issue is connected to key children's charities that are criminal and actually linked to international child trafficking. Now, I don't believe this is a faith group. This is an infiltration of those faith groups deliberately to try and create a tribulation period ultimately, but starting with civil unrest leading up to that between the faith groups. And we all need to unite, as I keep saying, including Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, whatever religion. If we don't have a faith, we need to unite. Within this company, Pierce Cousins connects to Royal Automobile Company. You can see 15 companies. Royal Automobile Club. Automobile Club of Great Britain. The Royal Automobile Club Buildings Company and the Royal Automobile Club. And that's important because that makes immediate connections to this very important company called the Jewish Community Centre UK, which we're going to go in more detail later, but I just want to show you why this is so important. Because it has those companies, it's got Jordan's on it as well, so it's linked to the fraud immediately. And it's a Jewish company, remember, supposedly. Supposedly it's Jewish. And you can see, we're going to go into a lot more detail about this another time. But on it, you have the Charles Darwin Trust. So you have people that are supposedly Jewish, connected to the theory of evolution, which would disprove all faith, including Judaism. And they have a legal and financial interest in that theory of evolution. These are not real Jews. Okay, this is an infiltration of all faith groups, a satanic, where it looks like it's an infiltrated Church of Satan by another group. Okay, but it is not what we're being led to believe. They are trying to cause the disruption between the faith groups. And here you can see, as I said, I think it's on this page. And we're there you go, the Royal Automobile Club Foundation. Okay, so it makes connections to this document, and you can see RAC PLC. So what they're trying to do is, through this immigration, through the propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, deception, they're using key individuals to do this, including Tommy Robinson, Charlie Veach and others. They're all implicated in this fraud, and there's very serious evidence in relation to both of those individuals that I'm going to show very soon. And it all ties in to this document, into Madeleine McCann, and even children's remains being put into the food chain. According to the evidence, we have to consider that is what is happening. So come back for the next part. There's a lot of information here. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for watching.